Welcome, everyone. Now, the first phase of a three-phase Gaza ceasefire is over, and Palestinian resistance movement Hamas and the Israeli regime are supposed to be entering a second phase of that deal, which would bring us one step closer to a permanent ceasefire, the complete Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and start of reconstruction, among other factors. Instead, the Zionist entity has made no effort to continue the ceasefire and has in fact closed all humanitarian assistance on over 2 million Palestinians. And one of the most vocal and active supporters of the Palestinian people, the people of Yemen, have quickly moved to give the Zionist entity 4 days to reopen humanitarian corridors for the entry of aid into Gaza, or they will initiate maritime operations against Israeli-linked vessels in the Red Sea. Yemen's Ansarullah movement has also vowed to restart military operations against the Zionist entity if it reneges on the ceasefire and resumes its campaign of genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. Yemen's ultimatum to the Zionist and U.S. war machine is the topic of today's Spotlight program. Now, a quick report.
The leader of Yemen's Ansarullah movement, Abdul-Malik al-Houthi, has issued a decisive ultimatum, giving Israel 4 days to lift the blockade on Gaza or face severe repercussions.
We announced to the whole world that we will give the mediators a deadline of 4 days. If humanitarian aid does not enter the Gaza Strip, we will resume our naval operations against the Israeli enemy. We will meet the blockade with a blockade.
In support of this announcement, hundreds of Yemenis took to the streets to celebrate, expressing solidarity with Palestine.
We came out in this blessed night on Ramadan to say that we support the declaration of our commander and that we will never retreat. We support all options, and we tell the Israeli enemy and its allies that the threats issued by our commander are not like the threats by Trump used only to measure what the reaction will be. Our threats are serious. You will see them manifest into action.
We spoke with a military expert to shed some light on how exactly the resumption of the blockade against Israel will look like in the days ahead.
Our government has warned previously that our naval operations are linked to the blockade on Gaza. If humanitarian aid is allowed to enter Gaza, our naval blockade will be lifted. But because the blockade on Gaza has returned, no doubt in the coming days our naval operations will resume if the mediators fail to find a solution to these violations of the ceasefire agreement.
As tensions rise, the region braces for the consequences of Israel's next move, which the Trump administration has made very clear it will support every step of the way. The ongoing blockade on Gaza will compel Yemen to resume its naval blockade on Israeli shipments. Given the escalating situation in the region, many experts believe that the U.S. and Israel will launch a full-scale war on Yemen, a war that Yemen has been preparing for. Yusuf Maudi, Press TV, Sana'a.
And now for your guests. Joining us, we have Mr. Hussein Al-Bukhaiti, activist and political commentator from the Yemeni capital, Sana'a. And Mr. Saib Shah, author and West Asia expert, joining us from Belfast. Gentlemen, hello, and I'd like to welcome you both to our Spotlight program here on Press TV. Hussein, we're going to start with you there in the Yemeni capital, Sana'a. Tell us what Abdul-Malik al-Houthi, leader of Yemen's Ansarullah movement, has now vowed to do in 4 days' time. And we speak of Yemeni naval operations in the high seas. For our viewers that might not be privy to the over 15 months of support we saw from the Yemenis for Palestinians in Gaza, what do they consist of?
It was clear from the speech of Sayyid Abdul-Malik yesterday that he's given the Zionist state of Israel and all the mediator, like the Qataris, the Egyptian, to have pressure on Israel to lift the blockade against Gaza. We know that Yemen has stopped its operation, especially in the Red Sea, since they started to support the Palestinian people and to support the people in Gaza. They have started an operation in the Red Sea, which has begun to target Israeli owned ships, and the second stage was actually to target Israeli linked ship, but the third stage was to target Israeli port and as well to target any shipping company, if it was not linked to Israel, but as long as any of its ships goes to any port of Israel, this means that that shipping company, it doesn't matter what country it belongs to, it will be blocked from entering the Red Sea or using the Red Sea. And we have seen that Yemeni have targeted hundreds of ships. They have sunk 2 ships, and they have targeted as well the United States Navy in the Red Sea, which have tried to prevent the Yemeni attack. And Yemeni demand was one demand and was clear: to stop the blockade against Gaza, to lift the blockade, to allow food and medicine to enter, and to have a ceasefire, and to stop killing Palestinian women and children, and to stop bombing Gaza. And this actually, when Israeli has accepted the truce between them and Hamas, Yemeni has immediately stopped order attack against Israel. But seems to be now that Israel, with the support from Trump administration, they are trying now not to go into the second stage of the truce, but they actually try now to extend the first stage, and as well not to allow the humanitarian aid and food and medicine to enter Gaza. They want to use this humanitarian aid as a weapons, and they want to have pressure on the Palestinian people to release all the Zionist prisoner of war. And it's actually so silly that what you things that you couldn't get your prisoners by war, do you think that this using the humanitarian aid will succeed and will force the Palestinian to release the prisoner? I don't think this will happen, and that's why Yemeni has sent a clear message that 4 days, and now it is now 72 hours till Yemeni will launch. I believe it will be different than before. It could be a full scale of attack, not only against Israeli linked ship or own ship, but as well against any company that have any ties or have any ships that goes toward Israel. Maybe as well Yemeni could form a blockade against countries like the United States and UK and as well Germany in the Red Sea against all their battleship and as well against their commercial ship. And I believe that Yemeni could expand their attack to target Israeli port in the Mediterranean Sea. And I believe that this escalation, as Sayyid Abdul-Malik have said a few weeks ago, that any escalation from the Zionist state, this means that Yemeni will have a new and a different type of escalation. And I believe it will be a full scale of attack against the Zionist state of Israel, especially against their port in the Mediterranean Sea.
Thank you, Hussein, for your initial comments there. And Mr. Saib Shah, thank you for your patience and welcome to our program here. Sir, now, this small resistance group out of Yemen, your initial thoughts on this big ultimatum it's making against the biggest, the Zionist U.S. war machine that we've seen, as well as the 15 months of support that it's given Palestinians throughout this onslaught and genocide in Gaza.
Hello to you and to your guest and your audience. Yemen now is at the forefront of the axis of resistance in support of Gaza after Hezbollah agreed to the ceasefire agreement in Lebanon. And the Yemenis are sending a clear message in here. Any additional American Zionist escalation, they say, against Gaza, it will reach the Yemeni shores and it will impact the global economy. It's this resistant movement in Yemen, it's proved itself. It can impact the whole international trade while it is impacting the genocide, going on in Gaza. And the Yemeni people were adhering to the Hague when the International Court of Justice found genocide plausible in Gaza. The Yemenis were adhering to what the Hague demanded from countries and non-state actors to do all what they can to stop this genocide. So the Yemeni message in here has become clearer every day since then. Either stop the Israeli aggression on Gaza, or the world will face an economic crisis starting from the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb. Let's see, if there is over even 12% of the volume of global trade passes through the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb. Energy supplies, goods flowing to the worldwide, especially Europe, Asia, and USA. It all goes through the Bab el-Mandeb. Closing Bab el-Mandeb temporary even, means skyrocketing prices for oil, gas, and even the shipping costs will rocket as well, since the ships have to tour around South Africa to go to Europe or anywhere. So this will lead to unprecedented global wave of inflation at a moment which is the global economy itself is fragile. So the Yemeni forces in the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandab, and even they were a great challenge proved to the U.S. Navy and its allies. Taking that in a short, if we a few days ago witnessed what the Yemeni when they shot the MQ-9, that says alone the capabilities of Yemenis, not just in Bab el-Mandab, as my colleague was saying, when they reached for over 15 months, when they were engaging the Zionist entity, they reached the heart of the fortress of all securities in the Western world, is Tel Aviv. And they targeted sensitive targets in there. So Yemen is not a small player. It's proved itself hard against the American Navy in that region. And we saw the American aircraft pulling out of the area in front of the Yemeni forces.
Thank you, Mr. Shah there. And Hussein, I actually want to put Mr. Saib Shah's comments to you as far as the what he mentioned about the economic crisis in the Yemenis' capacity to inflict. Bloomberg, an economic news outlet, I don't know if you read the article, said the cost of transporting goods due to Yemeni anti-Israel operations on the high seas has pushed up the cost over the 15-month campaign of genocide of a container accessing the Red Sea route from an average of $1,660 a container to over $6,000 a container, Hussein. It seems Yemen, even having a so-called U.S.-UK coalition to protect Israeli-linked vessels, has been winning this campaign in the high seas, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what has been since Yemen have started its attack in the Red Sea to support the Palestinians and to form a blockade against Israel. This actually will affect and inflect the entire economy. And we know that most of the countries that will be affected by those type of attack is countries that's actually directly involved in the war with the Israeli regime, like United Kingdom, Germany, France, and other European countries. They are the one who actually kind of depend on the Red Sea. That's why Yemeni are sending clear message. We are not allowing our brother and sister, our children to die in Gaza. Meanwhile, you are using the Red Sea to help the Israeli to reach all the goods toward Israel, and the United States as well using the Red Sea to form attacks as they did before against Yemen to support Israel. And as Trump said, he will support Israel with whatever it takes. But when Yemeni actually they are supporting the Palestinian people to stop the genocide, they are supporting Yemenis the Palestinian people against the war criminals, like the Minister of Defense of Israel, the former Minister of Defense, and as well the Prime Minister Netanyahu. He is a wanted man. He is a criminal on the run. That's why what Yemeni are doing actually is they are doing the right thing, and they will continue to do it. And what Israel is doing, what the United States and other countries that supporting Israel, they are trying to use humanitarian aid to have pressure on the Palestinian people. They want to set their prisoners of war free with those humanitarian aid, and I believe that Yemeni have as well now the upper hand. I think that they could as well target any ship in the Persian Gulf. We know that the Israeli regime is avoiding to somehow the blockade in the Red Sea by sending their ships toward the United Arab Emirates, and then those goods is transported through United Arab Emirates by trucks, and then through Saudi Arabia, through Jordan, and to Palestine. I believe that at one point Yemeni will target those ships either in the Persian Gulf, or if they docked in any port of the United Arab Emirates, because they are not allowing anyone to try to avoid the blockade. They are not allowing anyone to help the Israeli regime to continue its war against the Palestinian people.
Thanks, Hussein. And Mr. Shah, we don't really have to quote Bloomberg, do we? Because the proof is in the pudding when we see the fact the U.S. and UK and a few of their friends have set up a coalition to protect Israeli-linked vessels. We see them attacking Yemeni soil, killing Yemenis, attacking Yemeni infrastructure. we know that the Yemeni operations are getting the Zionist attention, and significantly, rather.
Yes, indeed. And this was for over 15 months since we've seen the coalition, the United States of America, gathered in the Red Sea, was included many European players, and even supported by some Arabic reactionary regimes. Most of them left that coalition because they seen themselves, they couldn't face the Yemeni. And the Yemenis are not like the normal symmetrical war kind of symmetrical layers the Americans or the Europeans facing. It's combined the asymmetrical and symmetrical warfare. So it's very hard for them to direct a precise kind of attack on the capabilities of the Yemenis. And most of the military strategic analysis, they said most of the attacks carried by the Zionist entity, which were done for show, to show big fires in Hodeidah or somewhere else, and the Americans, they didn't undermine the capabilities of the Yemenis, but the capability of the Yemenis people and the Yemenis armies and the resistance in Yemen is there to control Bab al-Mandab, to affect the international trade, to make the international community even pay a price for allowing the genocide to continue in Gaza. Since why don't they just pay an attention when they see in Gaza the prices of food and fuel and medicine soaring, and the people are worried sick in case the bombardment return and the starvation return. So the Yemeni people are in touch with the situation in Gaza, and they want to show support and to deny anybody to inflict further pain and suffering on the Palestinian people. The Yemenis' position is very honorable, and the Yemenis' position is a manifestation of what the International Criminal Court and what the Court of Justice are requiring any players to do. And that's supposed to be saluted and beefed up by Arabic and Islamic states.
And I'm glad that Mr. Saad Hussein mentioned the Yemeni position here, because we also should speak about the Yemenis suspending their pro-Palestinian operations on the high seas, with hitting occupied ports of Palestine, against using hypersonic missiles to hit Tel Aviv, using drones to hit those occupied ports. They said with the ceasefire in Gaza, we will stop all these attacks in support of Palestinians, and they did. So did Iraqi resistance, so did Lebanese resistance with the welcoming of a ceasefire, as well as Palestinian resistance. The only serial violator of ceasefires here, to Mr. Schatz's point, that's been dishonorable, has been the Zionist entity.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that the Zionists, what they have done as an example with the truce with Lebanon. They keep continue targeting Lebanon on a daily basis. They keep breaking this truce. I mean, this is exactly what they actually want to prove. They want actually to succeed in what they have failed during war. They want to succeed during this type of truce. And as you mentioned, when Yemeni have launched hypersonic missiles against Israel and Israeli ports as well in occupied Palestine, they have launched as well those hypersonic missiles against American ships and UK ships, and as well Israeli-linked ships. And as the United States and other countries have said, it's the first time in history that the country used ballistic missiles, anti-ship ballistic missiles. And I can believe, and I believe actually, that when after the 72 hours that's left for the Israeli regime to allow food and medicine to enter Gaza, I believe that Yemeni could surprise the Zionist state of Israel with much faster hypersonic missiles. They could as well be surprised with some kind of cluster warhead that have several warhead to attack Israeli regime. That's why Yemeni actually, they always give peace a chance. But if Israeli think that they will continue their genocide, they should actually learn from what the Saudi Saudi-led coalition and aggression against Yemen. During since 2015, Yemen has been under attack. Saudi has conducted more than almost 300 airstrikes against Yemen with the full support from the United States, from UK and other countries, and as well with the support from the Israeli regime itself when that war was launched against Yemen. But what was the result? Instead of Yemen being under attack and under blockade, they are the one now who have the upper hand, and they will form a blockade in the Red Sea, and if it's necessary at one point they will form that blockade against any country that have any kind of relation with the Zionist state of Israel.
And let me put that, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I want to put that as my final question to Mr. Saib Shot there. The UN has estimated between 2015 and 2022 over 377,000 Yemenis died, over 60% of them indirect causes of that Saudi-led campaign, like food insecurity, lack of accessible health services. Now, Yemenis endured a crippling siege, famine-like conditions, cholera and other diseases, mass displacement, you very well know. They're very justified to say, look, right now we cannot support our brothers in Gaza. We have to focus on our own reconstruction, our own rebuilding, but they have set this aside. Your final thoughts on what this says about the people of Yemen?
To start with, earlier this week, the US President Donald Trump redesignated the Houthis as a terrorist organization. That is a message saying whatever be in the United States of America with the Saudis' war of aggression on Yemen for the last over maybe from 2013 and beyond even that will continue. And the Yemen as a place have a genius geopolitical position. You see the maritime movement internationally controlled by Yemen. And the other thing, it's rich with its own resources. So the Saudis, the Emiratis, and the United States of America, and the Zionists as well, all looking at Yemen as a piece which they can loot, a piece of property, as Trump thinking. They want to loot. They want to deny the Yemenis people to the ability to be able to extract its own wealth. We've seen the sanction the Saudis impose on any international oil companies who go for exploring in Yemen. And the same thing goes to United Arab Emirates, who tried to loot Yemen and try to defragment Yemen and tell their people, we, the only one who can provide wealth and safety for you. Look at your neighbor, Yemen. They are poor. Even they have some wealth in there, but mismanagement. This is the message they want to do, and they want to appear. But at the end of the day, the whole target of that, which the Yemenis leadership understand, it's the occupation of Yemen, which they're trying to fulfill, to put Yemen under the hegemony of the United States of America and the Zionist entity. Since we know the Emiratis what try to do in Socotra's and in Aden port as well, bringing the Zionist entity over there. We know most of the forces who fought in Yemen, they were trained by the Zionist entity as well. Yemenis people are facing the Zionist entity before even the genocide in Gaza. It's all the plans and the design were there, deployed and advised and being cancelled by the Zionist generals themselves. Saudi Arabia deployed so many generals and consultants of the Zionist entity. So it's one battle at the end of the day against Zionism and imperialism in the region.
Thank you both for joining us on the program. Stay safe. To both of you, gentlemen, Mr. Hussein Al-Bukhaiti, there, activist and a political commentator, joining us from Sana'a, and also Mr. Saib Shah, author and West Asia expert, joining us from Belfast. And viewers, this brings us to the end of your Press TV Spotlight program. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye for now.